Hi, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Matthew. We've just finished the mother of James and John, who inserted herself into the relationship between these two disciples and Christ and asked that they be seated next to him in heaven. So Christ dealt with that situation. If you want to know about that, see the last video, very interesting. And then turns to his disciples in Matthew 25, excuse me. And Jesus called and said, the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them being their people, I believe, and that they are great exercise authority, and they that are great exercise authority over them. Otherwise, again, they're people. Seems obvious, as I'm sure it was to the disciples as well. But it shall not be so among you. Big lesson coming. But whoever shall be great among you, let him be your servant. So the word here is diakonos, where we get the word deacon. It meant at perhaps its very base, table waiter or servant. And whoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. So I may have said servant in the past verse. It's let him be your minister. Let him be your servant. Here in the English, in the original Greek, it's doulos, as opposed to diakonos. Doulos could be a bond servant, otherwise involuntary, like a slave at some level, or somebody who is voluntarily binding himself to a person or an institution. Perhaps the words differ in that a minister is more, or the diakonos is free. Otherwise, he or she can serve or not. And again, this is being used in a general sense here, not in the position of the church as described in 1 Timothy 3. It's just a general word. Doulos implies more bondage and involuntary activity. I think he's saying it both ways here for emphasis. This is generally how one way the Greeks commonly used emphasis was repetition. Verse 28, and even the Son of Man, again, this is Christ, how he referred to himself, the representative man, came not to be ministered unto, but to minister. Again, using the same root word, this time the verb for diakonao, if I'm saying that right, and to give his life a ransom for many. Lutron is the word here, means ransom, literally. It's the base word from which one of the base words, which we derive the term redeem. And so this is usually used in the verb form, lukrao for redeemed, or apolukrao for redeemed. Christ paying the price on the cross for our sins that we should have paid. He ransomed us from sin. Okay, so what he's saying here is that you may want to be number one and sit next to me, but that's not how you should think. When you think about being great, you're a minister. Great people minister unto other people. So that's our attitude. If you're teaching somebody or helping somebody, you're not somehow over them or aggrandizing yourself, pointing to yourself. You're that person's servant. Again, this is to the gospel believers, but it's also repeated in the epistles as well. We serve one another. We love one another. For the leaders of the church, they are the other people's servant. Okay. So in verse 29, he goes with the multitude away from Jericho, which again is near Jerusalem. He hasn't entered yet. It's to the northeast on the Jordan River near the Dead Sea. A great multitude followed them, and 2 blind men came and wished to be healed. And Christ said, "What shall I do unto you?" And he opened their eyes. Jesus had compassion on them. It says in verse 34, touched their eyes, and immediately they received their sight and followed them. Again, follow is what the believers did in the gospel times. It demonstrated their belief. As I say, the 2 most important words for believers in the gospels are to believe and to follow. So again, Christ is demonstrating his compassion here, as he does throughout the gospels. He's also still demonstrating that to the masses that he's Messiah. Okay, so he's doing this also by still confronting occasionally the Pharisees. So as he enters in Jerusalem, people still know who he is. So he is focused, as we've talked about, in preparing his disciples for going away. He still maintained that public persona as Messiah. So as he enters Jerusalem, people would not have forgotten who he is and will recognize him as such, as they do temporarily, as we'll see next chapter. Spoiler alert. Okay, so what have we learned? As we serve people, I think even in the church, even though this doesn't apply directly to the church, as we help in the church and help other people, we have an attitude of a servant. Thanks for joining me today. We will come to the story of Christ entering and preparing to enter Jerusalem for the final time for his death and resurrection in this next video. I hope you'll join me then.